I am making candied orange peel. It is time consuming, I'll tell you right off the bat, but it is the hit of any cookie tray that you are going to put together this holiday season, or any time for that matter. First thing you're going to do is buy a bag of oranges. I bought like a 5-pound bag of oranges. And then just take the oranges, cut off the ends, flip it over, cut it down the middle into halves. Then take your sharp knife, carefully, go along the edge of this orange, all the way around the pith, separating a little bit of the pith from the fruit. You're not going to go all the way through because that's just impossible, but go as much as you can to just start it. And then you stick your fingers and run them back and forth to try to separate the peel from the fruit. And if you get stuck, get your knife in there and loosen it up a little bit to separate it off into one big piece. Okay? It's a little tricky. You want to get it off in one smooth piece so that you don't have holes, because you're going to cut this later into strips. There. It comes apart. That goes in a big pot. The fruit goes in a big bowl, and you just keep doing that until you're done with all of it. So put the orange peels in a large pot, cover them with water, and just up so that they're all covered. It's fine. Of course they'll float, that makes it tricky to cover them, but put them on the stove, bring them to a boil, and then you're going to turn it down and simmer them for 20 minutes. In the meantime, you can come over here, and I'm not a big fan of the pith, so I like to kind of peel it off the rest of my orange. So get all the pith off of there. And then just cut those up to eat. So you'll have a lot of orange because you're going to do like 6 to 8 oranges to make one batch of these orange peels. So you'll have to eat 6 to 8 oranges all at once. And it's helpful if you peel them, because then the children in your family will be more than happy to eat them. But if you don't peel them, they won't eat them. Now I'm going to drain and then soak in cold water. A nice orange facial here. And we'll cover that up with cold water, and you're going to let them cool about 5 minutes until they're cool enough to handle. So now I'm going to drain off the cold water and then get to the trickiest part of all of this. Okay. The tricky part is cutting the pith, the rest of the pith, off of the peel so that you're left with a nice thin orange peel. Now, my husband is going to cringe when I show you how I do this, because he's never really paid that much attention to see that I am cutting towards myself with a sharp knife. But you got to get that knife in there, and I can't do it backwards, not facing myself. So, and then I just kind of jimmy the knife along the edge of that orange peel and the pith, and there. If you want to be really safe about it, you can kind of go that way, but now it's left-handed and it doesn't work, so I have to go this way. And then you just flip it that way. Now I'll be safe and finish that off. And as long as you've got most of the pith, if you leave a little bit in there, it's okay. It's just going to be a little bit thicker. But if you make it really thin, then they're kind of crispy. So that's a nice halfway medium. You do that to all of them. And then when you're done cutting all of the pith off, you're going to slice them into little strips. You can make them really skinny if you want. You can make them really fat. It's completely up to you how fat you want to make them. Some I make skinny, some I make fat. And you do that to all of those, and then we go to the next step. So I finished slicing up all my orange peel. Next step is to put 6 cups of sugar into a saucepan and 3 cups of water. Yes, it is a lot of sugar, but I've got something you can do with the leftover sugar afterwards, so it's kind of cool. it won't go to waste. All right, then you're gonna put this on the stove and bring it to a boil. You wanna stir it to combine over about medium heat to dissolve all the sugar and then bring it to a boil. But be careful when you're doing that because boiling sugar is extremely dangerous. If it splatters on you, it will burn like a son of a gun. So I stirred my sugar water solution here for about 10 minutes on fairly high heat until it boiled and it has cleared. So you can see that all the sugar is dissolved now. And I'm going to bring it back up to a boil here because I turned it down a little bit. And add in my orange strips. Okay, so it was at a boil. It's all right that it's not anymore. I'll put in all my orange strips carefully because it's very hot. You don't want to splash yourself or anyone who's standing next to you. Okay. And then you're just going to stir this, bring it back up to a boil, and then reduce it to a simmer. And you need to simmer it for about 40 minutes until these orange peel strips become translucent. But every so often you want to come along with a pastry brush dipped in water and kind of wash down the edges of the pot so that any sugar crystals that are forming get dissolved back into the main liquid. There we go. So let that come to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and then simmer those for about 40 minutes. They're starting to become nice and translucent. You can see how they've changed quite a bit already. Give them a stir. You don't have to stir this constantly. Never fear. There's plenty of time. Give it a little wipe down. And while you're doing that, because you have 40 minutes, there's no reason to not enjoy yourself while you're waiting. So 40 minutes has passed. The orange peels are nice and translucent looking. I'm going to turn off the heat and just let them sit in this nice thick syrup for 3 hours at least or overnight. I've always done it overnight myself. You don't have to do it right away though. You can put them in an airtight container sealed in the refrigerator for up to 3 weeks. And you see that the 40 minutes and my glass of wine has passed, so it's time to move on to this phase. I'm going to let them sit overnight because it is now 9 o'clock at night. Good morning. So the next phase starts. What I'm going to do is take the orange peel out of the syrup and put it into this strainer so that some of the juice drips off before the next part. So you put it over in here, and then when that's dripped a little bit so it's not really wet, you bring it over here, and then each piece needs to be squeegeed basically, and then rolled in sugar, and then set to dry. The more slowly you do this, then clean off your fingers in between and take the time to get fresh sugar when it gets damp. They're going to look nicer. They're going to have a more uniform, small grain to them as opposed to the chunky sugar look on them. They'll all taste really good in the end. But if you want them to look their prettiest, take your time when you're doing it. And then just leave them out to dry like this until they are all completely dry. So I've melted a bag of chocolate chips in a double boiler. A double boiler really helps this because it keeps the water down below, making the pan hot without putting direct heat and scorching the chocolate. So then I tip it so I have nice deep chocolate. Then just take the orange peel. They're nice and dry at this point. Dip them in the chocolate, shake off the excess, and set them down on wax paper until they're all cool and hardened. And that really is the last step of all of this. But I haven't told you about the best part. when you're done with the syrup, I strained it so all the little pieces of syrup are out of this, or I'm sorry, all the little pieces of orange are out of this. And now it's just orange syrup. So I used some of my pancakes this morning, which was delicious. But sugar has some healing properties. This makes a wonderful hand wash or scrub. I add a little bit of sugar to it so it has that granular. And then you just rub it on your hands, rinse them with water, put some lotion on. Your hands will feel amazingly soft and wonderful. So I just keep this in the refrigerator. You can use it as an all over body scrub, just your hands, your feet, whatever, but it is wonderful. So you don't waste much. Chocolate dipped orange peels. Happy holidays.